This is 5 Minute Power Platform, and today we're going to try out all 5 elements that are currently available for AI Builder. And I won't be doing it alone. This is a video of a demonstration that I did with my friend Rick Wilson in Washington, D.C. recently, where we actually dressed up in clown wigs. That may seem weird, and let's be honest, it is, until you realize that we decided that for our business scenario, we were going to be Whoopee Incorporated, specialists in snakes in a can, whoopee cushion, and rubber chickens. So Rick and I work at Whoopee World headquarters, and our business has an online presence, of course, for our global orders, as well as local buyers that we work with and stores in the company that own those stores. So we decided to implement AI and AI Builder in this way. We're going to use the business card scanner so that as we meet buyers, we can scan their business card and have that automatically entered into our system. Also, we're going to use object detection so that as we go out to stores, we can take a picture of inventory and automatically have that updated in our system as well. Our buyers tend to order on paper forms, and we get tired of typing in those paper forms. So we're going to use form recognition to make sure those orders go directly into the system as well. And on those orders, we'll use binary classification to take a look at those orders and see if we're going to be able to fulfill it on time based on our past performance. And then finally, on the website comments, we're going to use text classification so that we can look for any negative comments and act on them quickly so that we can make sure that our customers are satisfied. So before this, we've built this model-driven application that has contacts, our accounts. Each account can have multiple stores, like this one here. And so if we click into the store too, we see for each store that we have an inventory count here on the left, as well as the current inventory above that. And then on the right-hand side, we have each order that they've placed, the quantity and the date. Now for the website too, we're also tracking website comments so that we could run our text classification on it. And we also have a list of products that we use for the object detection. So we'll start by implementing the business card scanner. It's the simplest to implement because we don't need to train a new AI model. We'll just start by creating a new Canvas app. We'll call it Card Scanner, and we're going to do a phone-sized app here and click Create. Now once we click Create, we can then start inserting the components from AI Builder, in this case the business card scanner component. So we'll go to Insert, AI Builder, Business Card Reader, and we'll put that at the top of the form, resize it a little bit. Now below that, we'll insert a form where our data is going to go that gets pulled out of the AI model from the Business Card Reader. We'll also put on a button that we can use to submit the form and also text that we'll be implementing just to show the user that has been done successfully. Now we're going to control that text with a variable. Let's implement that here in the onChange event on the Business Card Scanner. So for onChange then, we're going to set var contact created as false, and we're going to reset the form with a new form function as well. And so that's going to, when we scan a new card, it's going to reset everything. We'll set the default mode for the form for new because we're always going to be inserting contacts, and then we'll bind that to our contacts entity in the common data service. Now let's reset the fields we want to see. We want email and business phone as well as first name and last name. So let's add those to our form as well. And let's reorder these a bit so we get first name and last name on top. Now let's set each one of those so they populate from the business card reader. So let's unlock each one of these cards so that we can change the default value. And then we'll set the default to the business card reader control. And you see all the properties here. These are everything that we can get out of the business card reader. So it's going to parse out as much as it can from the business card. In this case, we'll use the first name to populate the first name field on our form. We'll do the same. We'll unlock the last name card, change the default value to the business card reader controls last name value, and then 2 more times. One's for email, business card reader.email, and then finally for the business phone number as well. So now that those are done, let's go to work on the button. Let's make the button so that it's disabled after we add a contact, and it's enabled only when we're just scanned once. So if the var contact created is true, we're going to disable it. That's because it just did its work. And then we scan a new card, we'll put it back to edit mode so you can hit submit. So that'll give some nice kind of control on that button so that users can do the right thing. So we're going to set the on select of this to submit the form, so that'll submit our data back to the connected data source, which is the contacts in CDS, and we'll change the title here to add contact so the user knows what they're going to do when they click that button. So now let's edit this label, and this label is going to be the message that indicates that the contact's been created. And so we'll make that visible only when the contact has been successfully created. And so if var contact created is true, we're going to set that to be visible, otherwise it's going to be false. And you see it just disappeared. And then let's finally, on the on success of the form, let's set var contact created is true, and that'll control the button and the label that we just did. And that gets reset when someone scans a new business card, so that'll make the label so it's not visible, and the button so that it's inactive. So now let's try it out. So let's go in here and we'll scan a business card. So come over here, we've got a couple scans already, one for Albus Dumbledore. And we'll scan this, and you'll see that it spins for a second, and then it actually pulls out from that image file first name, last name, email, and so on. So now let's go back to our contacts. Let's search for Albus, and we see there's no Albus in there yet. So now when we hit add contact, the button grays out, our confirmation message shows. Let's do Neville Longbottom, everything resets. Now the message goes away and the button shows again. And if we go back and search now for Albus, we see he's now there. So he's gone from the scan, from the image, into the system. So now we'll talk about form processing. And so our customers use a form that looks like this. It's got 4 fields, the store number, and the quantities of each of the product they're ordering. And we're going to scan those paper forms using AI Builder. So we'll do that using a form processing model. We'll give each model a name. And what we need to do is feed this then some scanned sample documents. So I have some PNG files of these documents that I'm going to use to train this. So here we click Add Documents. You're limited to 50 pages and a total of 4 megabytes in JPEG, PNG, or PDF form. So I've selected 18 of these documents. I'm going to upload them here, and then it's going to start analyzing them. And what it's looking for is what changes in all of these images. The things that changes are the data fields. The things that stay the same are the forms. And so it's going to pick those out and build us a model. So here under models then, I can see my trained model, and if I click on it, it's going to highlight each of the fields it found and its confidence in the data. Now you see it also at the top there, it found 1825, which isn't a form field, but it did find the 4 that we care about here in the center of the form. And as soon as I click on those, it's going to highlight those on the right-hand side. So I'll click Done, and then Next, and then train the model. And it's going to train an AI model that we can then use in a Canvas app or a Flow. So I'm going to demonstrate it in a Canvas app here, and Rick will demonstrate how to use these in a Flow a little later. So let's create a new Canvas app, give it a name, click Create. Once the environment opens up, we're going to operate with this just like we did on the business scanner. So all these image-based AI models, we're going to use controls that are provided within the Canvas app environment. So I'll insert a new form processor control, and this is going to do a lot of the work for us. So what we do is we just select the model that we trained here, and then we'll size it here. We'll make it pretty big. And then one of the things about working with these, I like to set the on change to set a variable, because if you see here, when you need to get at the form data that the form processing model finds, you have to kind of dig down several levels. So here's form processor, form content, and fields. I don't want to type that every time, so every time the model gets a new set of data, I'm just going to set it to the variable current form. And that way I'll be able to work with it and just save myself some typing. So let's try it out here. Let's enter in one of these forms. It will analyze against the model, and we'll return here, and we can see it's found the 4 values. And in our variable that we set, we can see each of the 4 values has been extracted. So now they're no longer images on a PNG file. They're real data that we can work with. And so the rest of this is relatively straightforward. So instead of using the form control like Rick did, which is probably a better way to do this, I'm just going to do kind of a quick and dirty way. I'm going to add some images on here so we can see each of the products and a label beneath each one of them that'll show the quantity of that product that we have. And so I'll just center that label below it. Upload the icons here. So I've got each of the 3 products there. And then I can start assigning those here to the image. So we'll take the image. The first one's going to be the whoopee cushion. Let's center the text there. And then we'll use our current form variable that we set earlier. And you can see all of the 4 fields that are extracted from the form. This one's the whoopee cushion. 0 whoopee cushions in this order. I'm going to copy that and paste it and center it and paste it again and put it on the right-hand side. Then we'll update each one of those for each of the products. So this one for the chicken, update the quantity for the chicken that came off the form, rubber chickens. And the same for the whoopee cushion. We'll update this to the snakes, and we'll update the quantity below it to the snakes in a can that were found on the form. Now the last piece of data on the form is the store number, so let's just copy one of these and make it the store number. So we'll left justify that and say off of our current form, pick the store number. There it is. And then we'll put a label on there so our users know what that number represents. And so we'll take this label here, we'll mark it store number, and maybe make it bold, and write justified as well. So there we go. So now we've got a label there. Now for the flow that this is going to call is already built. And let me just show what it looks like here. So if we go into flows, I've got this Whoopee order data flow. What it is, it's going to trigger from PowerApps. Now I need to look up some related records off the store. I have the store number, but I don't have the actual CDS record ID. So this is going to look up that store number using a filter query, and then it's going to return the related store data. Now down below, I'm creating a new order record in CDS. And I'm asking PowerApps for the number of rubber chickens, snakes in a can, and whoopee cushion. Those will be fed in as parameters from our PowerApp. Now I'm setting fulfilled on time as a null. Fulfilled on time is a yes/no variable. Now binary classification only forecasts off yes/no variables, and they must be set null for a forecast to happen. So that's why I'm setting it null here, which is a pretty unusual thing to do. But in a model-driven app, you can't set it to null. You have to set it yes/no, and so it has to be done in a workflow or a flow. So let's use this flow in our Canvas app. And so what we'll do is we'll add a button on the Canvas app that will place the order by calling the flow. And so we'll add the button here, give it a name. We'll call it place order. And then on the on select for this, what we'll do is we're going to go to flows and we're going to say call our Whoopee order data flow. And that'll populate this flow and the 4 parameters, the store number. And we'll use our var current form to populate that. So we'll say store number. Next one is the Whoopee cushion. And so we'll use var current form and Whoopee cushion. And so on until we do rubber chickens and snakes in a can. So that'll populate all 4 form variables that we're getting off the scanned form into our flow and then populate an order in CDS. So let's scan a new form here, and this could be done also on a mobile device, right? Because it's a Power App. We're just using the web here for convenience. We see that it read 3, 3, and 13 for our order. We'll click place order. We see it looks like the flow is running there. And so if we come back to this particular store, arbitrage novelty, we see that there's a 3, 3, 13 order that was just put in now. And so it's gone from a paper form that was scanned, so a scanned image, into data using our Canvas app that we took a picture of it with, and then into our order system, ready to fulfill. And then later on, we'll also track forecasting on whether we'll fulfill it on time. So now let's do object detection. Object detection is having AI find things in images. And in particular, you have to create a common data service entity and records that list off the objects you want it to find. So here are our 3 products here in this active products, in this products entity that we created. And so now we're going to build object detection to create a new model. We have one created that has about 100 images uploaded to it. So we're going to add new images to that just to show the retraining process, which is similar to the training process. So click on models, and I'm going to open up our Whoopee products model here. And then you can see it's found 3 objects and 108 images. And what we'll do is we'll create a new version of this. And so we're kind of honing it in this process by taking what it already knows and adding in some new images. So it's going to create a new version. And it wants us to select the objects. We're going to select all of them. Those were our 3 products. And then we'll create next, click next, and it's going to allow us to upload a few new images from our device. So we'll click add images. And then we'll go to, we've got these 3 additional photos. We're going to go through the process of tagging these photos once they're uploaded. So now they're uploaded. We'll click close. And then we'll hit next. We'll walk through tagging each of them. So you can see all the ones that we've already tagged. And we'll go down to the bottom here. Here are the 3 new ones. And so the tagging process, if you wait long enough, it'll try to find all of the images. But here I'm just going to drag around that Whoopee cushion. And then it says, okay, what is this? I'll click Whoopee cushion. You can see it's also found some of the other objects, but none of those are what we wanted to understand. But we're trying to give it some different round objects so it can differentiate, that Whoopee cushions aren't just round, but they have other properties, so that it could do better in finding them. So let's do the next one here. Here we got another Whoopee cushion. Again, amongst other round objects, we'll tag this one, and then we'll do the last one here. And you can have more than one, and you can have a variety of options too, not just Whoopee cushions. We can have all 3 of our objects, and some of our other images have that. So now we'll click next here. You can see here the total tagging. So you have to have at least 15 samples for each object, and we have well above that. So I'll click next and click train, and we're going to let this model train in the background while we prepare our app that's going to use it. And so we'll see if we look at the Whoopee products model. We see the old one is available and live, and training is in progress for the new one. So what we'll do is we'll click Canvas apps here, and we're going to create our new app. This is going to be our Whoopee inventory app. And so this will allow us to go into a store and take a picture of what they have and automatically enter that inventory into our system. So in a minute here, we'll get a new Canvas app, and we'll start in the same way we did the last one. We'll use insert, and we'll insert the component that is for doing object detection. And that's the same process for all of these image-based AI models: business card reader, forms processor, and object detector. So we'll input the object detector control. We'll link it to the model we just created, which is the first option it gives you there. And we'll put in an edit form at the bottom, a lot like we did for the business card reader. Now we're not going to do all the display mode control and the confirmation message that we did in the first one. We're really just going to focus on using the model. So we'll call this button add inventory. On its on select, we'll submit the form. And then let's tailor the form so that it's connected to our data source. And so that's going to be our inventory counts entity. And then we're going to put in our key variables from there. And so Whoopee cushions, rubber chicken, snakes they can. Let's pull off created on. We don't need that for this. And let's also add on the store because we need to have the store ID. So let's move that store up to the top. So we've got the store and then the inventory below it. And then let's make that store drop down. Instead of pulling from inventory counts like it does below, you can see on the formula bar, let's instead delete that and let's tie it to the store's entity itself. And then we can have the store view. Let's take the active stores view so we get a list of active stores so the user can choose from the right store. And we see here it's pulling up the name field. That's what we want. And so we see here we get a pick list of all the stores. So that looks good. So now let's unlock the Whoopee cushion card, and we'll set its default value to populate from the object detector. Now the object detector returns a collection of vision objects. And so we're going to filter those by using the lookup function. We're going to look up those that have Whoopee cushion in the name and return the count of them. And so this is how you interact with the object detector. A little more complex than getting data out of the business card reader. And so that'll return 0 here because we haven't scanned anything. And we'll do something equivalent now for the rubber chicken. We'll unlock that card, and we'll unlock the snakes in a can. And then we'll set the default value for each to filter for the corresponding item. So we'll paste that one in there, same as we did for Whoopee cushion. And then we'll do that for snakes in a can. We'll paste in the function that's going to look up the vision objects that have snakes in a can in their description, matching what we have, the name we have in the CDS. So we have one more thing we need to do. We need to set the form to be in new mode, so that's always entering new records, because that's what we'll do for this inventory app. So let's choose our store, Arbitrage Novelty. Let's open up a photo that we haven't shown to the AI yet. So let's do this one. It's got multiple of each item. So it's spinning for a second, and you see the model return 2 Whoopee cushions, 3 rubber chickens, and 2 snakes in a can, exactly matching what we have in that image. And so now if we come back to our Arbitrage Novelty record, we see the current inventory there. None from today, which is none from right now, and so we'll click Add Inventory. When we refresh, we'll see a new entry at the top there with 2, 3, and 2 matching what we just scanned. So now let's look at binary classification. Binary classification builds an AI model that will predict a yes, no, or a true, false, or basically 2 values out of a set of data. And so here we're going to use the order data you see here on the right. And this column here called fulfilled is where we've tracked whether we fulfilled this order on time or not. The ones at the top are blank because they're new orders. We haven't yet fulfilled them, and so we're going to add a forecast column next to those. So where we forecast to see if we can fulfill this on time or not. So we're going to build those forecasts using a binary classification model. So we'll go in here and create a new binary classification model and give it a name. And you'll see here under required data, it is showing that it must be an entity. Your data must be in the common data service in order to run this model against it. So once I click create, it's going to show me a list of the entities I have access to in this CDS environment. We're going to use the order, and it's going to show you all the fields that are yes, no, or 2 option type. Those are the only things that it'll predict against is 2 option type fields. I've got one. It's that fulfilled on time column that we were just looking at. So now click next. It's going to ask for the input values. These are all of the fields in this entity. Now we don't want to use all of these as input values. We're going to just give it the quantities of rubber chickens, snakes in a can, and Whoopee cushions that this order contains. Now those are all numbers, and you don't have to forecast only off of numbers. They can be date, text, or option sets, or whatever's listed in here. But for my model, that's what we're choosing. So while it's training, the model is evaluating all your data and coming up with a AI model for this, and also making predictions against those that were set to null. And so we come in here and look at the model now that it's trained. We can see here that under view details, it gives us some very interesting information. It says, what are the big influencers driving the predictions that the model's making? And here it's our number of Whoopee cushions being ordered. That's the biggest influencer on whether or not we will fulfill this order on time. The number of rubber chickens at the bottom really doesn't have a big influence. It's really driven by Whoopee cushions and then snakes in a can. And you can see also here, it's also added 3 fields onto our entity. And if I click on this, I can go into CDS and see those. So in CDS, once it loads here, we'll see that it's added these 3 fulfilled on time: explanation, prediction, and probability. So the probability is how its confidence in its prediction. The explanation is some text fields explaining it. And we really only care about its forecasted value for this simple example. And so what I'll do is I'll go into the view that we were just looking at in the model-driven app, our subgrid view, and I'm going to add that predicted value as a new column. And so you can see it's already populated because we just trained our model. It populates when the model trains or every 24 hours. And so now when I publish this, if we go back into our model-driven application here and we refresh it, we'll see the new subgrid load with that additional forecasted column showing. And so now whenever an order is placed, when the model runs every 24 hours or every time it trains, we'll be able to see a forecast of whether or not it thinks we will be able to fulfill that order on time. And so that way we can give our customers better service by using AI embedded into this app. So now let's look at text classification. Text classification is the ability to predict the tags that should be applied to strings. And so you give it some strings that are already tagged, and then it uses that to build the model so it can do future predictions. Now here we're using comments from our website, and you see that they look like sentiment analysis in some cases, but for our products, what might be negative in sentiment analysis, such as being scary or loud, is actually a positive attribute of our product. And so we wanted to tag these and use text classification to predict the values. So let's go into the process of building a new model. So you go build and text classification to create a new model. But like before, we've got one trained and we're just going to retrain it just so we can talk about the training process. So we'll open up our product feedback text classification model, and you can see the stats on it, and we'll create a new version. When you create a new version of it, it's going to go through the entire process. So you can say, here's the tag text, and this is all data that must be in the common data service. And so we pointed it at our product feedback entity and the text property of that. So we can see all the data, so we can scan it. Yep, those are that's the right field. And now we select our tags. And so really, so if you saw before, our tags were separated with semicolons. And so it's basically asking us, okay, with the one field that contains your tags, how are they separated? Ours is separated by semicolon. And we can see there that's the one that separates them. So we'll choose semicolon. And then we'll click next to move through the model. So we'll review. So we can see here, scare the crap out of everyone. That's positive for us. Yep, good. Smelly but fun. That's also positive for us. That's terrific. And so now we'll choose the language. Next. And train. And so that's going to retrain this model based upon the data. So now how we're going to set this up is so that when someone adds a negative comment to our website, it'll email someone that can then take care of it. And so here's our web portal. And if we go up to products, we'll see that we can choose the whoopee cushion. And then if we look here, there's a place down below where we can add product comments. And so our flow is going to then trigger off of one of these comments, run it against the text classification model. If it determines that it's a negative comment based on our model, it'll then email someone who can respond to the person that left the comment. So one note about building a flow that uses AI Builder is that the flow must be contained in a solution. And here I have a product feedback flow, and it's got the text classification sample model in it. And so I'm going to add a flow to this solution. So that's important to know that it must be contained in a solution, or you won't see the predict action that we're going to use here in a second. And so let's now start our flow to trigger off the common data service. So we'll set this to go off our current environment and our entity that we created, which is our website comments. And a new one of those will be created from our portal every time a new comment is added. So triggering off of that, then we'll use the predict action. So this is the action that's only available if your flow is in a solution. And so then we'll pick the AI model. So we can see all of our models. This can be used for all of them, not just text classification. And now the request payload will vary depending on the type of model. For text classification, the payload is a JSON string that looks like this, with the text colon and then the comments that are coming in from the entity, both in one object. So we'll parse out the JSON response from the model with the parse JSON action. And so we'll put in the response payload as the content into parse JSON. And then the schema we'll just get from the documentation for the text classification model, and we'll paste that directly in here. So that again just comes right from the documentation. So this is going to return as results multiple tags. And so we'll do an apply to each. We'll put the results in the apply to each. And then we'll loop through them and we'll do a condition. We're going to say, okay, so if the returned tag, the type of tag, is of type negative, and that's the actual name of the tag that we gave it in Common Data Service when we defined them. So if it is of type, if it's negative, then we're going to email someone to take action on the negative comment. So we'll bring in a new email here. We'll do send an email from Outlook. We'll send the email to the person that can take action on it, add in a subject. Then we'll create a body for the email that just merges in some of the fields, such as the name of the customer, their email address, and the comment that they left. So now we can save our flow, and we'll go back and we'll create a new comment, and we'll see how the model handles it. So here we'll give in our name and our email address, and we'll put in a comment that is, in this case, negative, and we'll see if the model also predicts it as negative. So say this thing is so cheap, my dog hates it. Submit that comment. It's going to create a new Common Data Service record for our website's comment entity. And if we come back here and we look at our flow runs, when we refresh, we should see a new flow run. So clicking into that run, we can see it step by step. So it detected that a new record was created. It did the prediction, and we could see here from the prediction results that the response was, we got negative with a score of 0.628. Parsing out the JSON, we could see the detail there. And then the apply to each, we could see here that we got the, for each tag, which is only one, our negative tag, it went down the negative route and sent us a new email with the comment there. So we're able to act on that by taking a new comment, running it through an AI model, and then taking an action and flow based upon the results. So that's a demo of all 5 AI builder models that are available today. Just a few tips here, and I'll let you scan these or save them. These are what we learned as we went through and used all of these models. The object detection form and binary classification business card reader are all available. They're now GA, and text classifications coming up in March. Hope this was useful to you. Thanks for watching.